and welcome to this episode of Fuel Talk from Cox Automotive UK. Fuel Talk is a straight-talking podcast where we share valuable context around news and expertise from around the group. I'm James Davis, and for this episode, I'm delighted to be chatting about technology and logistics. And that's all around Movex and providing an overview and what's new. I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Shearer, who's Director of Movex. So welcome, Mark. Thanks for your time.
No problem, James. Good to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. You too. So I guess to start off with, Mark, an overview of Movex for people that have tuned in and maybe haven't heard or haven't had an update in terms of what Movex does for the industry.
Okay. Well, it's a web-based platform that effectively it aligns sort of demand-side requirement for vehicle transported, whether that be plated drivers or transported on a vehicle, with a whole bunch of suppliers on the other side. We tend to talk internally about it. It's almost like a little bit like a dating agency, in that you'll load your requirement on one side. That will then go out to a range of suppliers. They will bid on that particular workload. Then you will accept based on a number of criteria, which could be the cost of the transport, the quality of the supplier, whether or not they can do it or not do it on the dates that you want. And it allows particularly dealer customers to access a really, really broad kind of spread of transport providers. So again, you don't tend to get sort of let down with not being able to allocate a particular load. Prices are kind of kept competitive by the fact we have quite a large number of suppliers that compete for the particular business. So all told, it's been a successful business for a good number of years for Cox Automotive. We finished the acquisition of it, or the buyout of it, last year. So I came into the business in January 2019, and have been here ever since, and absolutely loving it.
Great. So very similar to, we were talking just before we pressed record in terms of the digitization of many things in the world now. So you have a digital technology-driven platform, but in a similar way to many businesses now that operate in that digital world, you haven't got the transporter assets, the drivers, the trucks.
Yes, that's right, James. I mean, there's, we crudely use a number of analogies to try and sort of simplify the message of what we're about, because it is, I wouldn't say it's unique, but there aren't too many of us out there actually kind of sort of doing it today. It's almost like how familiar people are with any kind of marketplace like an eBay or an Amazon, hotels.com, Airbnb, those kind of places. Is doing business with Movex is just as simple and easy as it is doing business with them. And we all use those kind of platforms in our home life. We're now taking the concept of that and doing it within, the automotive sort of wholesale industry, particularly around the B2B type of environment. And I think, Movex has come from a place where it's focused very hard on the transactional platform itself, which is super simple, really easy and intuitive to kind of use. We are on the road to taking that sort of transactional model and making it more digital. And what I mean by that is, additional ways of accessing the particular jobs, depending on what, whether or not you're on a tablet or a mobile phone rather than just a desktop, but also the way that we engage with customers in looking at, well, how do we get to a point where, we deal with a pretty sizable number of users in any 1 month, and you need to engage with those in a slightly different way and offer different types of services to them. So, if you look at how we, whenever we go and speak to our dealer network, we kind of build ourselves on 3 pillars, which is cost, control, and convenience. It's always very easy to get focused on the cost element. So, well, you can give me lower prices, but it's a bid basis. So some are lower, but some are higher. But in the round, you get a pretty competitive price from Movex. But the real value to our customers is more around the control and convenience that it offers. From a control perspective, clearly as a web-based platform, we capture an awful lot of data. So what we're able to do is replay that data back to our dealers. so they can make better kind of purchasing decisions with the transport they need. A great question I always ask when I go to any dealership or speak to any dealership is, well, how many moves you make, or how much you spend on your transport. And I tell it, very, very rarely do I get a definitive kind of answer back that they
Right.
could, hang their hat on and say, well, that's what we do on transport. And, there's been more than one example when you've asked a question of senior people within these big dealer groups is they don't even know who they use.
Right.
So it's very much a kind of rooftop specific kind of activity. And what we're able to do, particularly with those with multiple rooftops, is bring all that data together and replay to them how efficient and effective they are at managing their transport. And that allows them then ultimately to make better decisions on, rather than necessarily booking a same day job or a next day job, is, well, actually, if I've got 2, 3, 4 days worth of visibility, load the job now for pickup in 4 days' time. That means it allows the suppliers to plan their own routes and what they need to do, which means ultimately you get a better price on the other end of it because the supplier is delivering as efficiencies. So that kind of, we're not standalone, hands off, never talk to anybody at Movex. It's very much around using those transactions, replaying that data back to the dealerships, talking with the dealer principals about how they can probably get a slightly better cost or better service in terms of what they're doing, so they can then change the operational decisions within their organisations to meet that particular objective.
Yeah, that's interesting. So probably the takeaway from that is that logistics as a cost is almost hidden in those businesses. Yeah. It's not, but probably a massive amount of cost in terms of, and certainly essential to keeping the doors open in terms of getting stock to the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's difficult, again, when you're talking with people who've got no real granular knowledge of it, it's difficult to conceptually then sort of, put yourself in a position where you can add that value. But I think by saying to them, well, look, you're based on our experience, a national dealership will probably move, each dealer will probably move somewhere between 10 to 20 vehicles per month. Right. And the average mileages that we have are in excess of 150 miles. So when you put all that down and say, well, that might be over £100, I don't know, 60 to somewhere between 60 and 100 pounds worth of transport each particular time, times 10, times 12, times however many dealerships that you've got within your network, the amount that you spend kind of adds up exponentially as you're going. So that piece about having the control and the visibility is absolutely key in making sure that we're at the forefront of people's minds, particularly in this day and age with everything that's kind of gone on over the last 12 months or so. We all know the challenges that the dealer networks are going through, not just the profitability, but much wider than that. But this is just one tool that allows them to get a grip and understanding of what they're doing. And again, likewise, to make sort of better decisions in the future. Yeah,
no, very interesting. So in terms of, you said B2B, so from that perspective, for anyone listening in and saying, right, I get that, and I love the term matchmaking, because I think that's very, very expressive in terms of what you're doing with the platform. So how does it actually work at a granular level? So if you had that dealer customer, how would they go about using the system, booking the job, setting up a job, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's so movex.co.uk is the entry point into the platform itself. If they've got an account, then log onto their account. If they haven't got an account, it's absolutely fine. We can manage it that way, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. But effectively, what will happen is you log onto your account. You're presented then with a page of information requirements, if you like, to book your job. So simple things in terms of what's the registration number, what's the a kind of a broad brush value of the vehicle, because we need that for insurance governance. You don't want to be moving a £50,000 vehicle with an insurance company that's only got £20,000 worth of insurance cover. So it enables us to make sure that the right kind of value of vehicle isn't presented to the wrong supplier at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go through, where's it being picked up from, when do you want it picked up, same for the drop-off perspective. And we can be either very specific, or you could put a range of dates in there. You could say AM or PM kind of collections. You could add photographs. You could put additional notes on there. We might say, well, look, can you ring me an hour before you're going to arrive, because I want to know about it. So it's got all those functionalities. And then literally you press submit. What happens then is it then goes out to the supplier base, and that comes in really two formats. So first of all, there are some dealerships that already have some well-established relationships with transport providers, and they want to keep those. So we don't try and break them, but what we say to them is, look, you tell us who they are and what your contract price is on those. We'll operate within a walled garden environment. So you put a job on like that, it will only go to those suppliers. Those suppliers will still bid on it, but effectively it takes their contract prices, the base prices. So you kind of get them competing amongst themselves to, again, potentially offer a lower price. Should, for whatever reason, none of those preferred suppliers actually pick the job up, within 2 hours, it then goes out to the wider network. So that's we have about 400 active suppliers with us. We have many, many others on the books, but it's about 400 that it goes out to. But we aren't just facilitating a workflow, because if there are jobs that go on that aren't picked up, we have a broker team actually here now working at home. But the broker team then look at those jobs that are unallocated. They'll look at, right, who are the transport providers that are located either close to the start or finish line? Who are the transport providers that actually do a regular journey kind of that way? They'll actually ring them and say, I've got a job on the system. It's around this kind of pricing level that we need to be. You might not have seen it. Do you want it, kind of thing? And they'll break the deal. And occasionally you get into conversations that might be the supplier's unable to do it for the pricing that the dealership has asked for. So we'll say, well, look, would you compromise on that a little bit and maybe, lower your price by £5, or we'll go back to the dealer and say, look, we found someone to do the job. We can do it, but, could you afford to pay an extra £5 on that job? And we broker that deal. So this is not a complete hands-off kind of everything goes through a web and nobody touches it. It's very much, we do handhold a lot of that activity through, so that we get the best deal for the dealerships. But once that supplier has then kind of put his bid, the dealership will see all the bids that kind of come back from each supplier, and they can evaluate and look at those. Only want the cheapest one. That's fine. You could look at ones and say, well, those guys have done an awful lot of work for them, so I trust them, kind of thing, because other people have trusted them. Or it could well come down to just a star rating. So we have 5-star suppliers as well. And again, at the start of that process, you could also dictate that I only want to go to 5-star suppliers. And a 5-star supplier has done over 100 jobs for us, has never had any negative feedback. So it's kind of a mix and match of what the dealer wants, but we can kind of facilitate that into those various sort of pots and how they want to do. But we don't specifically ever go in to say we want to break existing relationships with transport providers. What we want to do is integrate those into our business, so they're still able to maintain that good relationship. And pretty much all the examples I've had so far, James, I could think of 2 suppliers we didn't deal with, but everybody else we do deal with already. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel with these suppliers. They're already dealing with Movex. They'll just, rather than deal direct with that dealership, they now go to the Movex platform to pick it up. Yeah.
So as with the whole world of logistics, whether you're moving a vehicle or indeed supermarket goods, a lot of those, as you alluded to, a lot of those logistics businesses are looking to fill an empty truck, if you like, or an empty space on a return journey. So you talk about that's backloading in terms of the technical term. So is there something that you can share in terms of a general saving of using Movex? Is there a headline number that says, look, because we are effectively we're utilising those suppliers more efficiently, that's why they're prepared to go into a reverse auction, because it's in their interest to backload?
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, if you're looking from a dealer's perspective on a price saving, I don't like getting involved in those conversations because I think it's too variable. But it depends on what you're actually comparing it with at the end of the day. I can say with a high degree of confidence that typically, if you look at a spot open market rate versus the rates that we're able to get, it's probably in the range of about 15 to 20% saving. But
Wow.
it does depend on those variabilities in terms of backload, etc. And if you look at the proposition that we've got for our supplier base, it's kind of twofold. It allows them to do exactly what you said there. So if they have a piece of work that they're working on a direct basis, nothing to do with Movex, but the vehicle's going from Southampton to Newcastle, and the guy's got to come home from Newcastle, but they've got no vehicle to fill it. Effectively, they can go into the Movex platform and search on jobs that are in that kind of area. So they've got a backload button. So we press the backload button and it will present them back the work that's available that's going generally in the route. And what that enables them to do is, because the cost of that transporter or that driver coming back from Newcastle to Southampton is a sunk cost, you've got to pay it. Is actually the backload, any revenue they get from it is all bottom line.
Yeah,
so what they're able to do is they'll be ultra competitive on that. I think as well from the suppliers, again, one of the key reasons they like to use us is, we offer cash is king in this particular industry. That our transport providers work on super skinny margins. It's quite difficult to manage a business, particularly when you've got salaries and to pay. You've got perhaps capital investment to pay, or trucks and all the other bits and pieces. And if they're dealing with dealerships directly, that dealership probably wants 30, 60 days kind of credit terms from their end. So, it makes it quite difficult or challenging for them. So what we've done is kind of sort of say, well, look, given the fact that if a piece of work or piece of transport is done and there's no kind of negative feedback, like there's a damage issue or anything like that, what we're able to do is we pay our suppliers within 4 days. So they get 4 days, they get payment for that particular job. But we offer credit to our dealer customers. So effectively, we're carrying the kind of cash flow hit, if you like. Now, it's you could argue the rights and wrong of doing that, but it does mean that we're very compelling for our supplier base in terms of they get what they want. So we're continually acquiring new suppliers that want to benefit from that, and we're offering the credit terms to the dealerships, which is kind of what they want anyway. So we're sort of pleasing both partners, and the only reason we can do that is purely down to the investment that Cox have made in the business and having that kind of sort of solid name and financial clout behind us.
Yeah, no, that must be fairly unique, if not unique, in the industry in terms of that, but certainly of great value to, as you say, both customers, which as that dating agency concept is always important. You've got to have both customers in your mind and in your heart, haven't you, in terms of what you've got as a proposition. So I know when we spoke before, there's some exciting news in terms of Movex, not just the update that we've had for listeners. So what's coming in terms of new technology and new developments in Movex this year, Mark?
Where do I start, James? Well, I think just set a context of kind of where the world's going, I think, to begin with. And, we've certainly you and I are aware, we talked about the digital first strategy within the Cox business. And clearly that's been driven by our customers at the end of the day. We want to go digital. Everything that's happened over the last year or so in terms of COVID has accelerated. That hasn't changed the end point of where people want to get to, but it has accelerated the way that a lot of our customers are then embracing digital capabilities in one form, fit, or function. So what we're doing is launching a new mobile app on the 1st of March. So it's an app that allows you to have direct access to the same account that you do on desktop. So we've now got a kind of omni-channel approach where whether you go on the desktop, whether you use your mobile phone, whether you use a tablet, you're going into the same data. You can do all the functionality that you've got on the desktop today will be replicated within the app itself. I think one of the biggest benefits is where the suppliers use it for the proof of collections and proof of deliveries. They are all digital. And because they're digital and done on the app, they're instantaneously uploaded onto the dealer's account. So whether they're looking on the app or on the desktop, they'll know when that vehicle has been picked up. They'll know any particular damage that's been register down to it at that particular time at the point of pickup. And clearly, when they get to the drop-off, they then get the POD, which will appear instantaneously with them as well. So it's really around that sort of convenience piece. And giving much better sort of control and visibility of things like the collection and the state of the vehicle at the collection point and the delivery. How do you compare the two? And they're such important parts of our process because they really allow us to kind of govern what we're doing and where responsibilities lie. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be available in the Google Store for the Android one, and the App Store for the iOS version, the Apple version. And yeah, we'll have all the communications going out around about the 1st of March.
That's great. Well, wish you luck with that. That sounds very positive, and certainly from you talking about those customers' vested interests, having information in their hand on a mobile device is certainly probably going to be really valuable in terms of, as you said, some of your team are now remote working. Yep. I think a lot of people now, certainly through this lockdown, as we emerge from lockdown, are going to need that extra help and technology. So you talked earlier, Mark, in terms of having an account and dealing with Movex, great. The website's there and they've got an account to log on. So how would somebody that wants to find out more about Movex, how would they best approach you in the business? Again,
there's a couple of routes in, James, really. You can go onto the movex.co.uk website and there's like an inquiry button if you've got a very specific contact us kind of button. There's a question. Again, if you're just looking for, I don't want an account, I just want to place a piece of transport, we've got the functionality to do that. You can go on there today, you can load that piece of transport. There is a £5 charge for posting it on site, but again, you can then pay with your credit card. So it kind of all sort of flows through, and it's a seamless process for them. So, and even though our teams are all working at home now, we have the right kind of technology infrastructure behind us in terms of telephony as well as the infrastructure for the platform. To me, we're able to conduct our business as good at home as we were when we were in the office. So it really is seamless, and you wouldn't know unless someone kind of told you.
Yeah, and in terms of scale then, Mark, it sounds impressive, and the technology is an enabler. What's just to give us an idea, I mean, how many vehicles were moved through the platform either last year, or are you projecting? I know this year is difficult with the market, but...
Yeah, I mean, last year was an exception for us. So broadly, we actually came out pretty much where we did in 2019 from a financial perspective. And in 2019 we moved touch under 120,000 vehicles.
Wow.
The expectation is it certainly was before we had the lockdown in January, was we'll do a similar amount this year. It would bounce back. And we've worked very closely with other colleagues, sales colleagues within our business to make sure that we know who the dealerships are that are using the platform and the ones that aren't, and making sure we take the messages sort of out to those. So the growth projections for this year are strong. We're very confident in that, and they only get stronger in 2022 and 2023.
Of course, as the market bounces back from what's been a torrid time, I no doubt of that. But Mark, listen, that's been really, really interesting, and thank you for that. Good luck with the app and to the team as well. I'm sure it's not been easy working through the pandemic, as you say, not just the remote working, but supporting customers. As I know you've put at the very, very forefront of everything we've done, as we have in Cox Automotive. So Mark, thanks for your time. I know that's really valuable. We'll let you get back to logistics in your pocket, however you want to describe it in terms of the matchmaking. I think that's the takeaway for me. And hope everyone that's listening and watching this, I hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and a like so others will see that. And actually, if there's anything else you want us to focus on in Fuel Talk, please do drop us a message through any of the social media channels in Cox Automotive UK. But for now, thank you for tuning into Fuel Talk, and stay safe, everybody. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, James. Bye now.